It was Under Oath headlining on that album, Cries of the Past, when they were like completely different band. And I thought that band was going to go somewhere. That was the last show we ever played. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh man, after this show, come on. Nah, you know? So that sort of stuff just happened, and that's how I just sort of like was like, all right, I guess that's it for bands. And then I was working, and I had another job, and just wasn't even worried about bands. And then met Sean.
Then it came, and that's actually...
That's weird, right?
That's very weird. A couple more for you. I love this one. This documentary, I always try to push the positive. I think a lot of times documentaries sometimes dwell on negative things. Try to do the opposite. So, how has this style of music made a positive impact on your life today?
Oh man, let me count the ways. You know, one, I think, pardon me, I think on an emotional level, I think heavy music is like a purge. It's kind of like a rage room. It's where it's like, I think why sometimes people always trip out like, oh, you know, metal fans are so chill the rest of the time when they're not at a show. And it's like, well, yeah, because we got it all out. That's why we're chills. We're screaming our asses off for an hour, like, so now it's all good. And I think that it's like, obviously that's a reduction, but I think the idea of like scream therapy is a real thing, because I've been on tour for a long time. Pandemic comes along. I'm sitting at home for a long time. I started wondering, like, where's all this? Why am I mad all the time? I'm just freaking mad. I just wake up mad, walk around mad. Like, where'd my patience go? Like, I have no patience anymore. What happened? And I realized, oh, it's because I'm not like going through this like purge where this performance where you get all this shit out of you, and then you're like, whew, that feels good. Go ahead and relax now. And I really think that's what was going on, because now that we've been back on the road for a few months, or about a year now, last September, I like feel back to myself again. And I really think it's like, I think that heavy music is an outlet for, you know, all the shit you got bouncing around up here that makes you uncomfortable, you know, makes you anxious, all that stuff. So I would say that's one thing I've noticed about it. But also like purpose, you know, for me, like I really didn't know necessarily where I was gonna end up. Like it was basically, I was at the point where the job I was working wasn't, you know, I was driving trucks. We're hauling asphalt, doing roads. And I live in Southern California, so there's like a lot of building happening all the time. So we're just doing road construction all the time. And I was kind of a dead end job for me. You're basically just holding the steering wheel, hauling asphalt. And so it was kind of like, well, I'm either gonna join the military or like try to go back to school maybe, but I don't even know what I want to go for. And then the band happened. So I think it gave me like a real sense of purpose, and it's why Sean and I like took it so serious. We're like, he'd been in so many bands that never went anywhere. So did I. I felt like, well, this is my last shot right here. Like, I'm gonna try it, and if it doesn't go, then oh well. Like, how many times can you try? So we took it super serious, and I think that sense of purpose was very good for us. Like, kept us focused, kept us on the road. Like, we matured a lot. You know, you got to run a business now, right? How much money do we make? What's it cost to get to the next show? What's it cost to eat? What's the hotel cost? Like, we all grew up real fast, like having to figure that stuff out. And so I think it just gave us experience, purpose. Obviously, the fans, everybody we've met, lifesavers for me, you know, took away that loneliness. So yeah, everything.
Three more here. So, when it comes down to like dark music in general, dark, you know, comics, dark movies, take
A lot of talking.
It's been good because all of your answers have been kind of like relative, like it's all in circle.
Oh, okay.
Some of the interviews I've done in the past, they all like go in different realms. You know what I mean? Like they don't. There's no conclusion to it.
All right. Well, hey, every first act's got to have a third act, you know.
So I mean, Do you recall the moment that you picked up that specific album or movie that got you into that darker realm of music? Like,
Yeah, I think so. It would have been a combination of Cradle of Filth and Demi Bulgaria, and the two records were Cruelty and the Beast and Spiritual Black Dimensions. Those two records is when I was like, oh, I'm fucking evil now. You know what I mean? Because I think, before that, like the grunge bands or even like Nine Inch Nails, because I was really into Nine Inch Nails, really into White Zombie, really into Manson, like all that kind of like the shock rock stuff that was coming out in the late 90s. Loved all those bands, Mudvayne, like all that stuff. But there was like no like religious aspect to any of those bands. They were just like kind of weird looking dudes, or kind of alt looking whatever. But then with Cradle and Dimmu, oh, they're taking it to a whole nother level. Like they're like head to toe, crazy makeup with spikes. Everything's got a pentagram on it. Everything's an upside down cross. Like all their lyrics are like just gnarly, right? So I think to me that was like, oh well, yeah, black metal's the next. That's like as far as you can go. And that's probably why Carnifex always had a black metal influence from day one, which really permeated the scene years later, I don't know. I just thought, to me, it was like, I got to black metal before I got to death metal. I listened to Cannibal and Fetus and Mortician after Cradle and Dimmu. So I was actually like, I always kind of came in from like the goth side, because it was Nine Inch Nails and Manson and White Zombie and KMFDM and Rammstein and those bands that like put me around the people that were like, oh, have you heard Cradle of Filth? And then there you go.
The one that's really on my mind as of recently that I want to see is Wanted.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh.
They got crazy production, yeah.
Yeah, like every time I want to see them, the fucking visas are getting all fucked up, so they can't even make it here. But I'm like, that's the one band where they go all out.
They might make it here one of these days. But yeah, the travel thing is tough, dude. Every country has like a mountain of restrictions, so if someone has one little thing in their past,
I could just imagine when Watkins fucking
exactly. You think not one of those guys has ever had anything ever? Right? Come on.
Like somebody that's like super Christian is like, so what is this Watkins you speak of?
Right.
But, yeah, they're on it. Okay, so. What excites you about the evolution of extreme music as a whole right now?
As a whole right now, it's much more accepting. When we started, it was super elitist. Everybody had a very narrow description of what real metal was. And if you went outside of it, well, you're just, you're a poser, you're fake, it's not real. How dare you? You wouldn't believe how many times people came up to us and like on the early shows, like when 2008 we're opening for Obituary and Unleashed, and we're the one of, and their fans would come up to us and they say, how dare you play this music? And they're serious, and you're like, dude, we have sound clips of 40-year-old version in our music. Like why? What, you think we're serious people? Like, what is wrong with you, man? Like, do you know the guys in Obituary? You know what we were doing right before the set? Yeah, no, they're having there's this saltine crackers, and they're doing the dry cracker challenge. How many crackers can you eat without taking a drink? I'm like, dude, lose the serious. Everybody's having fun except you, But like, that was the prevailing attitude, and it wasn't just fans. Revolver, Decibel, all Outburn, all the magazines, they all trashed deathcore, just went for it about how ill-conceived it is, how unlearned it is, just the lowest form of music you can create. And it's just like, okay, if you gotta hate on new stuff, I guess you're old. I don't know. We just kept at it. And what I've really noticed is in the last, really it's just the last 3, 4, 5 years, is that, and finally the attitude is starting to change. And I think with Lorna really getting all the success that they got, suddenly the gatekeepers sort of evaporated. Because what are you going to say? Like, people are listening to deathcore. There's no question about it. I think that song has like freaking 200 million plays on it. It's got some insane number, right? People are listening. So you can't say it's not music anymore, right? And I think it took 17 years before those gatekeepers finally had to eat their words. And it's like, yeah, deathcore is a real genre. Suck it. You know, I like that was the reality, and they just didn't want to accept that for so long. And we got a lot of that hate because we were always like the freaks of deathcore, you know. We were always trying to do something a little different, you know, add this, add that, add the theatrical aspect, add the black metal stuff. Obviously that took off with everybody, and it's like, yeah, that's the whole point of being a musician. Original artwork, right? Or are we supposed to start a band that sounds like a band from 20 years ago? Because that's not very original to me. Original is, hey, what if I take this kind of music and this kind of music and put them together? Oh, there you go. You got something new. And it being new was a lot of why we had so many kind of naysayers early on. You know, you kind of had to prove them wrong. And the genre did as a whole. It wasn't one band, you know, but we've been here the whole time, and we've been seeing all different peaks and valleys of what the genre sort of has to offer. You know, because it exploded and then it sort of went away, and then, you know, remember Gent was really big for a minute. Yeah, right. And that was Gent came out and kind of like really sort of like knocked deathcore down a peg or two, because I think with Animals and with some of the other Gent bands like Chon, it immediately seems much more like you see a higher level of musicianship, right? And so I think Gent was immediately embraced, and during that time, that was like kind of a low point for deathcore. You know, I can remember, you know, 13 and 14 doing some of those tours where it's like not all that many people showing up, you know, like and you kind of felt it. But then as, you know, more time goes, there's a ton more interest in the genre now, and I mean, we're getting sellouts on a ton of shows that we never really did before. I think a lot of that is the acceptance for the genre has really changed, and people are like, oh yeah, it's metal.
Dude, you want to know what I say to people? At any time somebody tries to narrow down a genre with me, I'm like, okay, do they yell in a microphone? They're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, then they're a metal band. Like,
is there a blast beat?
Yeah.
Is there a down-tuned guitar?
It's like,
you might have a metal band.
It's like you're a venting, slow tempo.
I mean, yeah, you can divide it up, but if the purpose of dividing up all those subgenres is to just judge them, pointless. If it's to do it to kind of be like, you know, represent every little band's different style, I mean, yeah, I get that. Of course, there's beatdown deathcore, there's blackened deathcore, there's brutal deathcore. I get that there is little subgenres, but they're really we all just live under the umbrella of death metal. You know, that's the reality, is it's death metal, and we all just live right here with it. That's why we tour with death metal bands, you know what I mean?
And it's funny, because all the death metal bands that I've talked to in the last 2 years or so, like, they're all like just super sweet. So like thinking like years ago when there was that elitism, it's like
well, a lot of it wasn't coming from other musicians.
Oh, it was just like
it was just
the sound, I guess. Like
I guess it was the breakdowns, and I think it was the way people looked.
Yeah.
Right? So if you have a kid with a screamo haircut, even though there's a blast beat and a brie happening, somehow it's like, you know, the guy in the leather jacket's like having a meltdown, but the haircut, you know. So I don't really know what it was, but hey, you know, we're past it, thankfully.
So last topic here, thinking about back to the early days when you had nothing. What do you think is the most rewarding part about doing things DIY with your band? Obviously, you still do stuff DIY with.
Totally, yeah. I mean, we're self-managed.
Yeah.
You know, the best thing. Well, I mean, here's the thing with the music industry. It's easy to lose control of your band. You know, and I think that happens to a lot of bands. And you know, we never did. We've always like really kept it. I mean, DIY is the dumbest thing to say, but we are doing it ourselves. It's like we do our own accounting. We manage ourselves. We work directly with our merch printing company. We hire our own crew. Like they're people we know. It's not management just flying people in, which is very common. We write all of our songs. You know what I mean? We don't write with ghostwriters or producers or people who aren't in the band, which is also very common. So I would say, it's been a very real expression of art. That's why every record's a little bit different too. It's because we're always kind of like, well, let's add this or let's change that, or we did this on the last record. Let's do this on this record. Let's drop that and pick up this, and we're gonna do it on record number 9. We already have different ideas of things we're gonna stop doing and then things we're gonna start doing, and because it's like that's what this whole thing is. You're just trying to put out something new and original each time.